Hey guys, in today's video we'll be working on making our edit form actually save the data over the existing data. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get started in our HTML file. We're going to find our submit event listener. Change the add recipe function at the end from add recipe to update recipe. Next, let's change the line below it so that instead of resetting the form, we can instead close it entirely. Google.script.host.close, open and close parentheses. Let's also go ahead and make some other changes here that will prevent us from having errors down the line. First, let's scroll up to the top and find our hidden ID input. Let's give it a name attribute equal to recipe ID in quotes. Now let's scroll down to find the block we added in our last video that gave IDs to all the ingredients that we're uploading. It turns out we won't need the ingredient IDs, so we'll delete the block entirely to prevent future issues. While we're here, we can also change the submit button's text to say update recipe rather than add a recipe. And that's it for the HTML file. Now we need to create the update recipe function. Go into the Code.gs file and copy the existing add recipe function. Rename it to update recipe. Near the top, you'll need a reference to the recipe ID. Const recipe ID equals parse int open parentheses recipe dot recipe ID closing parentheses. Next, replace the part where we previously appended the recipe to the sheet. Instead of the line sheet.append row, we will now use sheet.getRange open parentheses recipe ID, comma, 1, comma, 1, comma, row.length, closing parentheses, dot, set values, open parentheses, open square bracket, row, closing square bracket, closing parentheses. This will overwrite the row at the correct position rather than creating a whole new line. Now we're moving on to updating our ingredients. When we update our recipe, we're going to delete all the existing ingredients and then rewrite new lines for what's currently on the form. We'll get started by getting all of the data from the ingredients sheet to loop over. So type out const data equals ing sheet dot get data range open and close parentheses dot get values open and closing parentheses. Now let's start the loop by setting I to our data length so that we can start at the end. So let's type out for open parentheses let I equal data length minus 1 semicolon I is greater than or equal to 1 semicolon I minus minus closing parentheses and open up those curly braces. Inside of the curly braces, what we're going to do is look to see if the ingredient row we're currently at has the same recipe ID number as our newly edited recipe ID and delete it if it does. So we'll type out if open parentheses data square bracket I square bracket 4 triple equals recipe ID open curly braces ing sheet dot delete row parentheses I plus 1 closing parentheses. We don't need to do anything extra to add new ingredients since we were already doing that with our add a recipe function originally. So we're going to move on to making our recipe view automatically update the recipe name so that we can adjust the recipe name without causing errors in our view sheet. Let's take a look at our recipe view sheet and select the dropdown. Check the range to the left of the formula bar and copy it. We're going to need this in our getRange function. Hop back into the Code.gs file. Find the update recipe function, and at the very end, as the last thing we do, let's add this line. Const recipe view sheet equals spreadsheet app dot get active, open and close parentheses, dot get sheet by name, open parentheses, recipe view, closing parentheses, and then in the line below that, recipe view sheet dot get range, open parentheses, and in quotes, paste that value we got from the recipe view sheet, closing parentheses, dot set value, open parentheses, recipe dot name. Now let's test that everything is functioning properly. Hit the save icon, and then swap over to your sheet. Open the edit form for a recipe. I'm going to use a test one. Make some changes, add an ingredient, and then hit the update recipe button. We should see things automatically update in our view. Success! Thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like or subscribe. It really helps my channel. In my next video, we're going to work on making a delete button that will delete the recipe from the recipe view. Hope to see you there. Alright, bye now!